And I'm back. Damn it. It's just cold, we just piss off. Okay, so I just remembered there's a video I wanted to check out again by the one and only Hog, and from what I watched it before, was that I half agree with him and half don't in this video. So we'll see. Let's see. And it's titled Riker Calls Diablo 4 Players Noobs, Hog Reacts.
It's pretty fun.
This guy's freaking outrageous. I'm not sure if it's because I've never talked to him or whatever like that, right? I don't know if this is just how he generally is with his responses to things in life, or if it's just his persona online, being this kind of inflammatory reactionist and whatnot. But I still think every once in a while he has good takes, and sometimes he has bad takes. It's just how it is, right? All right, let's put this up on screen. And there. It's hilarious that that is how he opens the video. Oh man. Oh, I'll be right back. I need a Tylenol. Okay, let's begin.
And y'all get on me about saying shit? Like, he literally just created that out of his ass. Riker didn't say that. Riker calls hardcore players new. Try softcore first. By Mr. Llama SC. Ooh, Llama.
Now, I'll say this about Mr. Llama SC. There are times when I find this guy, most of his content I think is okay, but there's times where, like what Hog talks about in this video, where it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, that makes zero sense. It's just straight bullshit. Like, come on.
Llama's got a call out video. Hey, did I start a trend in the D4 community, or?
Yeah, I don't think he started a trend of calling people out in the Diablo community. I think it's just, for whatever reason, Llama in this video this recording decided to do what he does. You'll see.
All right, so that's obviously it's Mr. Llama's video. I'm curious to see, because I saw the live stream and he really wasn't calling them noobs, but we'll get to that here in a little bit.
Yeah, I also saw both the live stream with the devs and Riker's end game video after the fact as well. And nothing in there seemed controversial to me.
Daggum, this is an hour and 8 minutes long. Trigger warning. Trigger.
Yeah, luckily this video isn't that long. This one's only 13:41.
What's up YouTube, Mr. Llama SC here, and today we're going to be reacting to the Riker Played Diablo 4 Endgame gameplay breakdown video that he just released. So Riker got to go, we saw him do the interview with the devs, be a part of that stream where they talked a little bit more about the game, but while he was there he got to play in the endgame and got to have a few thoughts to share with all of us. So, I would love...
Alright, Elefante in the room. You know you got to play the closed beta. you got to play in game also, but you're still under NDA, so you can't talk about it. So just stop with the green-eyed monster a little bit. And
So I don't know. I'm gonna take a quick look here. Diablo 4 did Mr. Llama SC play in the closed end game beta? What? This was 9 months ago. What? Maybe. Yeah, maybe he did. Maybe he was in the closed beta or whatever. But like, who cares? Right? He's not allowed to. If he's under NDA, which is why I think the complaint here from Hog, that's what it seems like to me, is he's complaining. Maybe he seems to me in general to maybe be a bit jealous of some of these bigger people like Llama, Riker, etc. That if Llama is not allowed to talk about the endgame beta because he's under NDA, then I think it's perfectly fine for him to do this video as if he hasn't, right? And give his take on it. I think there's nothing wrong with that, since he's under NDA anyways.
And just know that you got to play it too. Y'all, every one of these big name guys that partners with Diablo, they got to play the closed, not the one that we all got to play by buying the sandwich. I'm talking about the one back in November that wasn't done, that played the end game. They all got to play. They just bullshitting us. They all.
So here's another thing: is I'm not sure if Hog here is just talking out of his ass and making an assumption that all these big YouTubers, streamers, etc., revolving around Diablo, got to play the endgame beta or the closed November one, right? Or if there's proof that he did, that these people did play it. Again, whoop-de-doo. If they're not allowed to talk about it, they're not allowed to talk about it.
All know the end game and what the deal is. It's called non-disclosure agreements, why they can't talk about it.
Love to hear more about what that's going to entail, because again, I think that's going to be a big part of, will this game be continuous fun? Will this game be thousands of hours? Will this game be hundreds of hours, right? I think, what will the end game grind be? And again, like we've said, I'm going to put this at the start of the video, so it's not in all the comments, but I'm sure it will still be from people who don't listen. Games, ARPGs, have repetitive nature to them. That is just how it is. A lot of great games are repetitive. The question will be, is that repetition fun or not fun? And so
this is coming from a man who has played a 20-plus-year-old game and farmed the same boss in the same dungeon layouts, like 15 layouts or whatever the preset layout is, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you're concerned about if it's going to be fun? Well, so don't play it if you don't think it's going to be fun.
Okay, again, this is one of these moments like, why, Hog? What are you talking about? Because for somebody like Llama, Mr. Llama SC, like, yeah, he's obsessed with Diablo 2. There's other people like Dabrunsky and whatnot that also are just obsessed hardcore with the grind, let's say, of Diablo 2. They love chasing those super rare items. There's some of them I've seen, they've talked about items that they've never actually seen personally, that have never dropped in the 20-some years they've been playing Diablo 2. And it's almost like a collector's thing, right? They want it, where you want to catch all the Pokemon, right? Like, but in this case, all the loot. And yeah, that repetitive loop of trying to find gear, of playing different builds, of, well, somewhat different. And things are now more different than they were previous, like 20 some years or whatever of Diablo 2's lifespan, because of the additions and changes they've been making in D2R. Regardless, if somebody like the repetitive nature of searching for gear, etc., that is part of the core of the Diablo franchise and ARPGs in general. Okay, this the MMO light stuff, any other features, none of that compares, generally speaking, to the grind of finding gear. That's the draw, I would say, both from my other experience and my own experience and what other people have said of these kinds of games. Now, the nature of those games can be really boring, right? There's some ARPGs I've played and I was just like, I don't want to do this, because the gameplay, generally speaking, got really shitty. A good example of that is Diablo 3. It's just, I don't know, I think it's primarily due to the combat for me. Diablo 2, I don't play it consistently the way that somebody like Mr. Llama SC does, but like I always enjoy the combat and going in there for some period of time, playing the game, building up characters, and especially on the ladder stuff, and finding things that I've not found before, making gear with like rune words and stuff like that, especially, that I've not had before. I really enjoy that, so I don't see what's wrong. And he's not Llama SC here, the way Hog is taking it is as if Llama SC is complaining about it. He's not. He's just simply stating, like, generally speaking, is the gameplay loop of Diablo 4 going to be fun? Right? And he's not even saying, is it going to be fun for me? Is it going to be fun for you? It's just a general question. What's wrong with that? I don't understand why somebody gets so frustrated the way Hog does when somebody makes a statement like that. It's bizarre.
Imagine being so mad that there's a new Diablo game, and your game that you always played had this much stuff to do at the end. Well, there's really no end game. You're just refarming parts of the campaign. Have we thought about that for a minute real quick? The only end game in Diablo 2, per se, is the Ubers.
So I'm going to, again, from somebody that's, I haven't really done Ubers and stuff like that myself. I've gone and learned about them. But, especially since Diablo 2 Resurrected released, but that's not technically the end game, right? Is the Ubers. The Ubers and, like, what do you call it? The Ubers, they give you certain things to get the torch and the gem, right? For the buffs, the skill stuff and whatnot. That's it. That's not endgame. The endgame is going out once you have your build solidified to some degree and farming for items throughout the whole map in whatever capacity you can, whatever areas you can. And they've made that easier with the Sunder charms and the like, and new balancing of classes like the assassin, to make it fun for you to go out and use these different tools to do what you're supposed to do. So the Ubers, I don't think they're like a stepping stone towards the actual end game. They are not the end game. You don't do the Ubers and then say the game's done. Okay?
Technically. The other time, you're literally just farming campaign.
And yeah, I would say the same thing in like the whole campaign thing. In Diablo 3 even, like in any ARPG, it doesn't matter how you're doing it. Like, yeah, I would say Diablo 2, because it's like the predecessor of most ARPGs. Yeah, it's simple compared to other games, right? Like Path of Exile takes things far beyond in terms of like what you can do to farm for items, like the maps and various other systems that I personally don't know about because I don't play that game. but it had to start somewhere.
That's all there is to do in Diablo 2 is campaign, and you're farming those specific bosses in the campaign. So,
And again, he's laughing here, but this is a guy who played extensively Diablo 3 for a long time. And what do you do in that game? You farm primarily for gear in Greater Rifts, right? From the boss, and you don't even get loot drops from the creatures, you get them from the bosses at the end of that. The Rift Guardians. And it's so repetitive and so boring. And yet he seemed to be okay with that. Like, how is that not better, not worse than Diablo 2? At least in Diablo 2, you have the entirety of the campaign world open to you for exploration, for finding gear. And it looks like it's shaping up to be similar in Diablo 4. Diablo 3 was way more restrictive in that sense. Because it's just, I think, in general, a worse game overall.
I mean, just the fact that we're having this silly argument about is it busy, is it
Nobody's arguing about it, Hog. Only you are.
engaging? Will it keep you engaged?
Enemies are more fearsome.
Yeah, this part from Llama is dumb. Just foreshadow, like, yeah, he's...
I wish that was more... What does that mean?
What does it mean? Fearsome. It's
Google, dictionary, etc.
He's gonna look at that like it's an attribute or something. So obviously they're highlighting features in the game. Like, so you're not, are you looking at overcome and going, overcome? What does overcome mean? I wish they were more clear about overcome. No, it's enemies are more fearsome, which means they're fucking scarier. Which means they're tougher. Like, I don't understand. It means they're fucking scary. It's bad when the redneck has to give you a vocab class. Fearsome. Frightening. Especially in appearance. That's what it means. It's not more stamina, more experience. You're reading into things way too much, and that's a goddamn problem. If it was something they wanted us to see, if it was an attribute about the game, it would be highlighted like the rest of them are.
This is one of those parts where I half agree, half disagree with Hog. So, yes, Llama's take here, both about fearsome and overcome, is dumb. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, right? Fearsome, monsters are more aggressive, they're more, they're stronger, on higher difficulties, things like that's to be expected. That's easily understood. And then on top of that, unless Mr. Llama has been living under a rock, the devs have explained how this actually plays out on higher difficulties. He apparently watched the live stream Llama did of Riker with the devs recently, and in there I do believe it was they talked about the aggressiveness and strategies and AI and stuff like that and how they work together, and it's less so that they become more spongy for health and more tactical. They become more aggressive. The AI works together better against players based on the difficulty you're on, which I think is better than just making them tankier, making them do more damage generally, etc. Right? And then overcome, yeah, like who doesn't understand that given the nature of such things in video games and the like what does overcoming something mean? You're beating it, right? Or whatever. So the monsters, they just ignore that much of your resistance. It's pretty clear what that is. So Llama's take on that is just, I don't know if he's just trolling here, being clickbaity or whatever, but it's dumb, right? Unnecessary dumb to get hung up on that jargon. What was the other thing here where I half disagree with them? I don't remember now. Fearsome,
frightening, especially in appearance. That's what it means. It's not more stamina, more experience. You're reading into things.
Okay, so yeah, I hear in part, I think, given what I just said, that the devs had said regarding how the monsters work, yeah, they do. They're going to have better attacks. They're going to do more damage. They're all going to have some HP increases, especially with given the way scaling works in the game. So they technically have more stamina. They're harder to kill, but it's not just statistically because they have more HP, more defense, etc. Right? They do have that.
It's way too much, and that's a goddamn problem. If it was something they wanted us to see, if it was an attribute about the game, it would be highlighted.
Here's another thing. The devs had to go and explain, as I just said, in a live stream, what that meant, right? Being more fearsome. They could instead, on that same page that Llama SC was showing, have a tooltip over fearsome, right? Make it the word orange, like the 200% increased experience, etc. And when you hover over fearsome, it would then say, this is what we mean by fearsome, not just generally speaking, like colloquially, but also statistically. This is how things are changed in the various difficulties for monster behavior, right? Because then you could just mouse over that in the difficulty list and see exactly what that means, right? And beyond just the generalization of the word fearsome. They should have that, I think. Because, again, just putting fearsome there is kind of confusing for a lot of people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking that question. What does exactly that mean, them being more fearsome, right?
Like the rest of them are.
100% increased experience. They drop 15% more gold. And monsters overcome 40% resistance.
This part's hilarious.
I really wish they would just make this simpler. What does overcoming resistance mean?
It means they bypass 40% of your resistance. I thought this guy was smart. I don't understand. Bro, stop playing stupid, dude. You're not...
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop. You know what overcome 40% of resistance means. Use your fucking brain a tiny little bit. It means that they are going to overcome 40% of your resistance, which means, okay, if you have 40% resistance, it now becomes 0. They bypass 40% of that. If you have 60% resistance, that means you really have 20% that's actually usable. What do you mean?
So, simple solution to this is instead of saying monsters maybe they should switch it to be more like Diablo 2. Diablo 2, it's simple. Everybody knows. Normal, nightmare, hell, right? Your resistances, when you go from normal to nightmare, regardless what they are dropped by a set amount across the board. That's not specifically coming from the monsters. It's a statistical negative that the difficulty places on you, right? So that would be maybe more clear. You'd have to do less math, and obviously I haven't seen what it looks like on Nightmare and Torment or whatever, but what I'm concerned with regarding that is that in your own stats, it's going to say you have 60% resistance, but you're going to go out and get thwacked by a monster, and it's going to hit you harder than you expect it to because of your own displayed statistics. If those statistics instead just say you hop from normal, or veteran, I guess, to nightmare, and you have 60% resistance for something, and then you go into nightmare and you suddenly have 20%, no confusion. Everybody, except maybe like somebody who maybe misses this tooltip or something, might say, why is that lower? And then they see that, right? Oh, okay, it's because I'm on the higher difficulty. Problem solved.
This guy's playing y'all, dude. He knows good and goddamn well what all this shit means. This man's been playing Diablo games for a long time, and he's looking for any tiny goddamn little thing that he can nitpick about, so y'all will be confused and be on his side and don't want to go play the game.
Is Hog talking about himself here? I think he kind of is without realizing it. He's doing the same thing in many instances regarding other people. So that I've seen anyways in his various videos I've watched. It's real hilarious. It's a typical thing for people to always project onto other people. Now, regardless whether somebody else is doing that or not, a lot of times it is a projection from a person. So,
Bro, you gotta
it's
stop
hilarious.
this shit. You need to embrace the game. Stop nitpicking everything. It's very simple.
What if he doesn't like the game, Hog? Why does he need to embrace it? We don't even know what the full game is going to be like yet. So we all need to wait and see. Because nobody 100% knows, except for the devs, perhaps, to some degree, how this is all going to play out. How successful the game's going to be, how successful and enjoyable the game loop and everything of it all is going to be. Like, so nobody needs to embrace the game. Okay? They need to just, that, because this reminds me very much, somebody saying something like what he just did, of like a religious fanatic saying you need to just accept whatever this is, accept my theology, blah 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 blah, right? It's dumb. Nobody should just accept anything. They should always question if it's necessary, because that's how you get, if you don't, that's how you get fooled, that's how you get bamboozled a lot, and it can cause a lot of pain in people's lives. Okay, this is why a lot of people don't pre-order anymore for games in general, because they've been let down so many times because they just embrace the game because of whatever franchise or whatever it's part of.
If you don't know what overcome means, you can just pull up a dictionary and look up what overcome means.
Does that mean they gain more resistance, or they overcome our 40?
What do you think? It's in the wording. It doesn't say they gain more resistance. It says they overcome your resistance. I'm sure the monsters are going to be tankier and have higher resist themselves. I think that's just implied by the fact that it's a higher difficulty. Okay? This is so dumb on Llama's part. But then again, maybe he's just being a troll. I don't know.
Resistance.
What does it say? You don't read good, do you? Monsters overcome 40% resistance. This is second grade reading comprehension, bro.
Okay, the other thing, this is one of the things I really dislike about Hog's stuff, is why does he have to do personal attacks against somebody? He could just say, here's the issue with what you're saying. He doesn't have to imply that the guy's stupid or something, and that's exactly what he's doing there, right? Oh, it's a second grade reading comprehension, blah, 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 right? And this is something he generally does in a lot of his stuff that I don't like. Is why do you need to go after somebody like that at all? It's childish, in my opinion, right? And then he wonders why people call him out for shit, as he said multiple times before.
The monsters overcome 40% of your resistances. Is that better? Does that make you understand it a little bit better? Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
Like challenge, right? Compared to something like D2, right? Like in Diablo 2, if you're level 45 fighting in an area level 50 versus level 50 fighting in an area level 50, there's so much that like you might be, you know.
Newsflash. This game is just like that. Diablo 4 is just like that. Did he not play? He must not play the beta. He must like secretly play D2R the whole time.
Again, this is one of those points where Hog right now is doing exactly, if you were to take the whole thing of Llama with the fearsome and overcome part as some kind of troll hole, how can he not understand those simple terms, etc. Hog is doing the exact same kind of trolly bullshit here. Now, whether he's played Diablo 2, he said so at least, right? Maybe he actually hasn't, or maybe he doesn't actually understand how that game works. And Diablo 3, and he's played the Diablo 4 betas that he's had access to. Comparing Diablo 4 in terms of scaling to Diablo 2 is wrong. because they don't have the same kind of scaling. What Llama is saying here is actually correct. In Diablo 2, if you're level 45 and you have semi-appropriate gear for the difficulty, say Nightmare at that point, you should be on Nightmare typically by 45, and you're in a 50 area, there's not that much of a difference in monsters' capabilities to resist your attacks and the like. Okay, obviously there's some variance based on your statistics, based on your gear and skills and whatnot, but your the difference in difficulty for fighting monsters when you're level 45 in a level 50 area is not that crazy. Okay, it's not that big of a difference, and it's not going to hinder you until you progress too far into the campaign, say on Nightmare, and be underleveled. That's when things are going to be a kick in the teeth for you, because the monsters are going to hit you too hard, because your own resistance, your own statistics are going to be too low. Too little damage, too little defenses, and the monsters will whoop your ass, especially bosses like Mephisto or something. In Diablo 3, as far as I remember, the difference here is that, and this is where the first time, as far as I know, it happened in a Diablo game, your level compared to the monsters you're fighting on the difficulty you're fighting, right? That determines how much they resist, and etc., your attacks, and how much they, let's say, overcome your own defenses. And you get impacted severely for being under leveled. It's not even necessarily your gear per se. You could have the best gear for your level, but if you're under leveled, that's how they scale the monsters versus you. The closer you are in level, and then even once you overcome their level, say they're level 50, you're level 55, you now have the numerical advantage because you're higher level than the monsters. They do less damage to you now, and they take more damage from you because of the level difference. That didn't exist so much in Diablo 2 at all, whereas because they were statically set for their levels. But in Diablo 3, that's different. In Diablo 4, we know that the scaling is the monster's scale to your level. So the scaling, no matter where you go, for the most part, the levels of creatures are always scaled to you. So you're always even for the most part. And then, especially since you can't go on to Nightmare until you're level 50, right? You have to be, now maybe some people could beat Nightmare, or sorry, the capstone dungeon before 50. That might be a thing, right? And Riker talks about that in this video. It's possible somebody that's really good, maybe they're with friends or something like that too, can clear the capstone dungeon before they hit 50. But I think you actually, one of the requirements is you have to be level 50 first. So even if you beat the capstone, you have to go gain some levels and hit 50 before they'll let you even go on to Nightmare. In Diablo 2, again, difference. If I beat the campaign at level 20, whether it's by myself or because somebody powered me through the campaign and killed shit for me, I can then go on to Nightmare, or hell if it's unlocked. It's solely based around not your level, but which bosses you've killed. Have you killed Diablo in OG, Diablo 2, or Baal in the expansion? That's all the game cares about in terms of letting you go on to the next difficulty. Again, massive differences from Diablo 4. Massive differences. And Diablo 4 also has the same scaling issue in places where monsters are higher level than you, where they have a static base level. So if you're level 12, and you, because this specifically happened to me in and to my brother in various open world dungeon areas, right? The what do you call it, the settlement places, right, that you can unlock by defeating whatever's going on there for the zone. I went to one, and I think it was the one where you got to kill all the goatmen, where they're freezing everything, and it was a grind as a level 12, because it's a 15 area, I do believe, to get through that. Okay? Because the monsters were resisting my shit so much and doing so much more damage to me, overcoming my resistance stuff that much more, because there was an actual level difference. So both are in play here, right? Both are in play here, because they don't scale to you at that point. And but again, vice versa. Once you hit 15, you're relatively equalized. 16, 17, blah blah blah. If you go there later, at later levels, it's going to be easier for you in Diablo 4 because you have the numerical advantage, just like D3, not D2.
Beta was going on, because y'all remember all the bosses have levels. All the areas have levels. Y'all remember the level 25 strongholds, the level 35 boss? Like,
That 35 dude, right? That elite, he was an exception for that. That area though, the rest of the mobs there were not scaled in the same way, right? They weren't. They were scaled to your level. Because I fought lots of monsters around that guy, waiting for this guy to frickin' spawn, and they were all my level. But this guy wasn't. The elite was level 35. So if you went there at level 1, he's still level 35. He's an example of a static thing in the game compared to, it's an exception to the rule. That's all it is.
you didn't play. I'm calling it. He didn't play the beta, y'all. He didn't play the beta. There ain't no goddamn way.
I don't think Hog understands here, so I'm going to say the same thing. I don't think he really played the beta. Or at least if he has, because I haven't watched any of his streams or anything like that of him playing the betas. I don't think he understands how these systems work.
Because you would not even bring up points like this if you actually played the beta. No, it's nothing like Diablo 3. The game style, and maybe this is why he really doesn't like the game. The game style is way more like Diablo 2, and that is universal.
I don't think this is the case. It's some, I don't know, I wouldn't say exact percentages, but it's somewhere, some balance between Diablo 3 and Diablo 2. I don't think it's more like Diablo 2. For instance, itemization, way more like Diablo 3, I think, than Diablo 2. Drop rates and item types is more like Diablo 2, but the way the items are set up, generally speaking, is more like Diablo 3. The necessity of gear and inflexibility for builds, right? Because apparently Diablo 4 was not supposed to be about your gear and more about your character in general, your skills, your Paragon board, etc. As the majority of the choices you make that are important for your character. But as we found out in both betas so far and whatnot, it's actually the opposite. Your gear determines far more in terms of weight your build than the Paragon board, and because it literally alters your build. The Paragon boards don't really do that. They're mostly numerical in nature, whereas the legendaries and stuff actually alter how your skills function. Big difference. Those things should have been in the skill tree and the Paragon board or whatever, and not on the items, because it puts too much of a heavy emphasis. And then there's the nature of the stats that are on the gear as well, right? Those are more statistically alike to Diablo 3 than Diablo 2. And anybody could pull up a picture, right? And compare some items from Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 and then put Diablo 4 in between them, and you'll see they're more like Diablo 3 and not Diablo 2.
Acceptance. I won't say it's fact, but it's a pretty common opinion. Let's say that.
I don't think it's common opinion at all. Right? It's at least evenly split down the middle. I've seen so many posts and where people are like, this is more like Diablo 3 and da 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 da, so many different ways than Diablo 2, etc. And some people are the opposite. It's not a clean split. It's not more one side necessarily than the other or whatever. And I don't know what that split looks like, but it's not like what he's saying, right? And guess what? Fuck consensus. I don't care what the consensus of anything is, okay? Consensus is useful to a degree, but when it's taken as like a gospel that consensus is the way and that consensus is the ultimate in terms of determining things, it's bullshit. Because consensus doesn't equal fact. Consensus is based on what people collectively decide may be the best, but it doesn't have to be factually the best. It can, in fact, be really bad, and people agree on it anyways and move forward with whatever that thing is that you've all agreed to.
Pretty common opinion that it's more like Diablo 2 than Diablo 3. So, you're gonna have to get over this and stop just inventing shit to cry about, dude.
Exactly, Hog. You cry about everything anybody else says all the time. It's dumb. Get over it. Not everybody agrees with you that Diablo 4 or the Diablo franchise or whatever in general, or Blizzard or whatever your issue is the ultimate. And they don't have to jump on the freaking train that's going over the cliff, perhaps, blindly, just because you think you should, or because you have. It's called sunk cost fallacy.
You're gonna be a tiny bit weaker, but like it won't be as much. But in D3 and Immortal,
Sorry, I'll be right back. I gotta get some water. All right, here we go once again down the rabbit hole.
I I know that, you know, if you're like a few levels below the area, there's like big penalties and stuff, and
What is he even talking about? We're talking about end game, and there's no penalty if you open the. I guess the.
Here's the thing: is we're not. Mr. Llama SC is not just talking about endgame. Riker is. But Mr. Llama SC is not. He's talking generally about the game. Okay? Hog is not listening. I don't think at all to what is going on here.
Penalty was you got your ass wiped. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, the penalty was you're too low level in an area, as I've already discussed, and you get penalized for it in both Diablo 3 and Diablo 4. Not the same way that you do in Diablo 2. Okay? If I was level 20 and I went on to Nightmare, the monsters in Act 1 are going to beat my ass because they're like level, I think, 30 plus. Right? It becomes easier to determine that in Diablo 2 Resurrected now because as soon as you hit Nightmare, you can get terrorized zones. And the terrorized zones, they scale up, the monsters' levels scale up based on your level to a certain degree, based on the type of monster. So the area, the region of the map, say like the first place you walk out into, the Bloodmoor, I think. You walk out into there, the monsters are normally, say, 30, but when they become terrorized, they can become up to a maximum of like 5 levels for the strongest monster in that area compared to you. So it's still always compared to you for terrorized zones. But they have both, right? Where there's the normal scaling of the monsters are just this level for this specific area. And then if you go into the caves or something like that that normally have a much higher like item level and monster level than normal for the area, they also scale up more because the area is terrorized. Again, not the same as Diablo 3 and Diablo 4. Except maybe in that they also have their own version of terrorized zones in Diablo 4, right? The Helltide events, where you're going to find stronger monsters. Those monsters do not scale to your freaking level, okay?
If you opened a 150, you weren't ready for a 150, you just couldn't do it. There wasn't any penalties because you weren't a certain level. Tell me that you never.
If you were 149 and then you went into 150, you would be penalized less than if you were 100 going into 150, right? Like, or whatever. If you're like, if it was a 100 dungeon you opened up with a sigil or whatever it's called, and you're level 75, you're going to get severely penalized. And you, yes, he's right. You won't be able to do that, and you will get your ass whooped. But the reasons for why that's occurring, it's not exactly how Hog's putting it here.
Played Diablo 3 without telling me you never played Diablo 3.
So I'm learning how it works. I'm learning how the mechanics of the build work. I'm learning how the mechanics of the fight work. And again, I would almost advise a hardcore player maybe just try softcore first, just to know what you're up against.
Riker calls out hardcore players?
No, surely you're not that soft where you think that's a call out. No. That's a call out?
Noobs, try softcore. That is a direct quote.
So, it was at this point when I was watching, I had a kind of a similar reaction to Hog here, actually. Again, this is a point where I kind of agree with him, right? That, like, what the fuck are you talking about, Mr. Llama SC? That's not what happened at all. What Riker is saying, I think, is perfectly legitimate advice, right? Don't go on to hardcore and try this content. Perhaps, he's not saying you shouldn't, but maybe you should take it a bit easy regarding how these things work, to learn the mechanics, to learn, generally speaking, how things are, and then go try it on a hardcore character that you have, right? You could do both. You could level a softcore and a hardcore character, get them to the same point, try it on the softcore character first, because it's difficult content. Nightmare Sigils, those dungeons are difficult. Capstone dungeons, those are really freaking difficult based on what Riker was saying. And also, like, generally speaking, the areas that are statically leveled in the overworld, right? Like the settlement areas and things like that. Try it there because, as an example, I went to one place. It's this little village in Fractured Peaks. I don't remember what it's called, but it's infested by like a bunch of demons, a bunch of worshippers of like Lilith and stuff like that. You have to like deactivate Lilith statues or something there. You have to kill the villagers. You have to kill the demons that are summoned there, and then the end boss is actually, it starts out as one succubus that then turns into 3 or 4 succubuses. And for the most part, because I think that's a level 15 area, I was like level 10 or something. And I went in there and I was doing okay. I was mechanically using strategy and tactics to maneuver around and defeat the enemies there until I got to the boss, right? At the very end of the event for that area. And they just, I mean, it was one of those things where if they just touched me because of my level, I was insta-kill because I was too low level, right? And the capstone dungeons and stuff and the Nightmare Sigil dungeons, those are like that as well.
From Riker.
Oh, and then so that's the reasoning for Riker saying maybe you should try this on softcore first, right? If you're worried because of how hardcore generally speaking is and seems to turn out to be in Diablo 4. That's it. It's just a bit of advice. You don't have to and he even says, I think immediately after this, now I know because hardcore players are crazy people, they don't care. They're just going to go do it. They're going to beat their head against the wall and try it anyways, right? So whatever, that's their prerogative if they decide to do that or not. Llama here, at this point in his reaction, it seemed like he was just trolling. He was just joking around with that. But then immediately after this, his reaction, because he doesn't offer a clarification, he's like, oh, don't worry, guys, I'm just joking, or anything like that, has, I think, caused some people to think maybe he's being somewhat serious. Maybe he doesn't actually understand what Riker's saying here, and obviously Riker didn't actually use the words that Mr. Llama SC is attributing to him as quote.
Wow, that's pretty bald.
And y'all get on me about saying shit? Like, he literally...
That's because you say dumb shit all the time, Hog. And your reactions like that. Like, I think it's funny. He's, face there and everything. But at the same time, you're doing the same thing to a degree. And in many cases, to more blown out extent than Mr. Llama SC. At least people, when they see Mr. Llama SC, maybe assume he's just joking, but it's not the case with Hog. I don't think. It doesn't seem like it anyways.
He just created that out of his ass. Riker didn't say that.
That's true.
Riker didn't say you guys are noobs. But, so here's another reason why Riker probably said that. Because all of you hardcore players are the same ones that are on the forums.
Sorry, I had to blow my nose there. Again, why does he have to go after people like this? It's a meaningless thing, right? Why do you care so much, Hog, what other people even think, right? If you enjoy the game, okay, promote it on your stream, whatever, but it's this whole thing of that I notice a lot nowadays is people are taught, or they think for whatever reason, that you have to knock somebody else down a peg or two or more to uplift yourself. Really? No, you're not winning. Okay, you're not better than them in that sense. You're actually worse because you're actually sinking perhaps to their level. And I don't remember I learned this lesson from, it was a quote or something from like Sun Tzu, I think, the ancient Chinese general, where it was something along the, and I might be remembering who said this incorrectly, just so you know. I think it was Sun Tzu, where he talks about basically if you lower yourself to your enemy's level, and enemy here in terms of what we're talking about is operative, but that's what he was talking about, war and stuff. If you lower yourself to the same tactics, to the same strategies, to the same more level of morality or lack thereof, perhaps in your own, because you know morality is what's the word, holy crap, I can't remember, can't believe I can't remember this word. It's subjective. There we go. Right? But if you lower your standards to those who you are seemingly opposed to, that you actually are opposed to, that are actually your enemies, etc., you're not winning. Even if you defeat them, wipe them out completely to some degree, they win in reality because you've sunk to their level. They have perpetuated whatever their bad shit was through you. How do you not allow that to happen? You don't sink to their level. You stay above that, right? You don't let them bring you down to their level, because that's a victory for them, not for you. You lose in that case.
Bitching and asking damn Rod Ferguson and shit, is hardcore really hardcore in PvP? Is it death?
And again here, I think it's perfectly legitimate for people to be wondering about that, because PvP is a thing, and because of the span of time between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 to Diablo 4, right? One, they didn't really have PvP in Diablo 3, but on hardcore, if I remember correctly, if you went and fought in that little arena thing that they had or whatever for people in the same game, you didn't die permanently. In Diablo 2, you died permanently. And now Diablo 4 is the same as Diablo 2, right? Regardless of the content. So it's going to be way more of a challenge for you to do things, PvP, etc. You're going to want to be more incentivized, I think, to group up more for PvP stuff, if that's something you want to do, to try and be successful there, instead of being the loner out there, right? That's going to be the top tier people, similar to like something like Albion Online or something, right? The richest people or whatever, that very rarely die and lose all their shit, right? The average person on playing hardcore is probably going to want to do things more cautiously. And again, there was no clarification regarding PvP, and a lot of people who are asking that question are probably from Diablo 3, okay, who didn't have PvP really, and what was there wasn't permadeath. So I think, again, it's a legitimate question to ask.
And then when he says permadeath, you're like, oh my god! So that's why he's saying that, because hardcore it's fucking hardcore. If you die, you die. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you got spooled in D3 because you could go do a set dungeon and not and die and still not lose your character, but that's not true.
I didn't know that about set dungeons.
Hardcore? That's why I don't play hardcore. Everyone's like, Hog, why don't you play hardcore? Well, that's why. Because I don't want to break all my fucking equipment when I lose all my shit.
You don't break your equipment. Your character is just done. Anything they're wearing is fucking gone. It doesn't go back to your stash, right, etc. Now, one difference between Diablo 2 and Diablo 4 that's not mentioned here is that you apparently, and I hope they keep this in to some degree, and some people I know were complaining, air quotes, complaining about this, and this was the really hardcore people going, why is this in the game? It kind of seems to take away from hardcore as a concept. Is you start at level 1 with a scroll where when you die, you get teleported automatically back to town. Now, whether you lose all your stuff or not, I don't know. You might have to actually go out and pick up your body similar to Diablo 2 to get your stuff back, right? That hasn't been clarified as far as I know. I could be wrong about that. And those scrolls are not common. They drop, you have a chance for those scrolls to drop every 10 hours or so. One. That's it. And it's just a chance. You could go 4 days without having one of those scrolls drop on hardcore. And I think it's a good thing they put those in there, because there's things that are going to be outside of your control, perhaps. Right? What if the game lags out and it's not your computer, but instead the connection to the servers, and you die to something because you get disconnected, right? Well, in this case, you'll just be, supposedly, if it works correctly, you'll be teleported back to town and safe. I'm assuming, given that you probably would have your gear as well, right? But same go, like, if you want to be real cautious in PvP, you would wait till you have 2+ scrolls saved up, right? And then go do some PvP, because then you're guaranteed to, at least, even if you're not successful there, to have a chance to keep going, maybe to improve, instead of getting super pissed off, and you know that might still happen, stressed out, etc., and losing all your shit. Because a lot of people don't find that fun, right? The one chance only. There are some who do and others who don't, so they're trying to find a middle ground for people who want to play hardcore to have an enjoyable experience, and I think that's fine. It's not like it's permanently you always have this scroll. Now, you could maybe cheat. I don't know if this is true or not. The item might be character bound. If it's not, they need to fix that. Because if the item is not character bound, you could literally just make a bunch of characters on hardcore, throw the scroll in your stash, and then make the character that you actually are going to play, and have a shitload of fucking scrolls available to you, right? That'd be dumb. That needs to change if that is the case. Better be character bound. And not account bound.
Because I will literally take this here monitor, break it in half, take this one, break it in half, throw my keyboard like a ninja star, take the PC, punt it into the damn lake. I mean, that's what'll happen. I'm not doing it. But this, just like I saw. So here we go. We 12 minutes in, and it's just bullshit as usual. Like, are you fucking...
Only some parts are bullshit, remember that. Some of that perfectly illegitimate on Mr. Llama's part, and the opposite on Harlan.
Kidding me? But that's why he's not even calling anybody out. Like, that's why I said in the beginning, I don't think this is a real thing, because he ain't calling nobody out, because I watched it. He's simply saying, it's a brand new game, so try softcore first, so you understand how shit works, because everyone's seen it. It ain't just me. All of y'all hardcore players are crying about hardcore. Maybe not all of y'all, but a lot of y'all are crying. Hardcore's hardcore. There's no honor system. Rebel, 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 rebel. God. And you're crying about adjectives. Like,
I really wish I knew what this adjective meant. Too bad they don't have a dictionary.
this is a damn clown show.
Excuse me. And Mr. Llama SC had a +1 invite to the clown show, and it was Hog.
I'm not gonna watch an hour of this shit, because it's just a clown show. We know the man didn't say it, whatever. Y'all just try, like, so this is what it is. This community is so desperate for content at this point that we're like self-imploding on each other. No, that's enough of that. That's all I can take.
Yeah, so that's the video. Final thoughts would be something like, I watched the entire hour of Mr. Llama SC's reaction to Riker there, and for the most part, the rest of it was fine, right? It was fine. Aside from those few things, and Hogs, once again, he's just overreacting, I think, and he's not, in a lot of cases, he's actually not listening to what people are actually saying, or what their intentions are, or what their motives are, or whatever, for a lot of things, and he's just injecting his own bullshit, right? It's this one, I've had people do this, I'm sure anybody that listens and watches this in the future will agree to, when that person comes along that says, this is what you said, oh, so this is what you fucking mean, or whatever, right? And your response is, that's not what I said. That's not what I mean. What they're doing is they're projecting, they're insinuating, they're not, and they're understanding, because they're actually not fucking listening, because they're pissed off or anxious or whatever's going on, right? Their very narrow view of the situation at the moment is such that they don't pay attention, and then they lose any kind of ability to actually understand what's going on. A good case of this is when you're having arguments with a spouse or something, or a sibling or whatever, right? Some family member or friend, and they do this. It's in a lot of cases a natural human reaction to things, and my response has always been, that's not what I said, and that's not what I meant. I meant what I said. Here's the words I said, not what you're saying, right? And a lot of times it's a degeneration and half-truth of whatever you've said, right? So I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below when this goes live on YouTube, etc., and we'll get back to the game now. And the music. All right. And yeah, sorry about the long form commentary there. I don't know if people will enjoy that or whatever, but you know, I that's the second or third time I've watched that video now. And like I said, I watched Riker's and Mr. Lamaz's stuff as well there regarding that same thing. And it's just, man, it's something I needed to get off my chest, because that kind of bullshit from Hog in a lot of instances actually does bother me. Yeah, you might say, oh, why do you care? The reason for it is because this guy has a community of people. I've checked out his comments and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right. Yeah, Hog, 100%. Yeah, right? They're just following what he says or whatever, and not actually using their own. Again, this is human herd mentality, right? Communities of people, that's what they do in a lot of cases. And in a lot of cases, it's to feel in sync with the people that you're in that community with, and that's it. It's just human behavior. You know? Again, consensus doesn't equal fact or truth, whether morally or like factual truth. You know what? After that, I kind of need a smoke. That stuff kind of gets me revved up. Holy crap. Yeah, another thing is, I don't know if Hog does this stuff just to rile people up, just to get a reaction out of people, because it's like, what is it? Kind of like the news, right? The news cycle. All negative shit for the most part that draws people's attention in a lot of cases and keeps their attention to some degree for some time. And I do honestly think that Hog is trying to, what's the word, punch up from his league, let's say as a YouTuber, as a streamer or whatever, against these other people who are not better or anything like that, but like just have bigger communities, bigger platforms, etc. Than he does, to gain attention. And it's probably worked to some degree, but if you're anything like me, who's somebody that tries to, as best as possible, think for themselves, it's not working. It's not. I mean, you could be somebody that thinks for yourself and then agree with them after the fact. That's your prerogative. And I'm also not asking you to be clear, ever to believe only what I say, because that would of course be hypocritical. Think for yourself, do whatever you think is justifiably right from there. Alright, I'll be right back.